Painful to circumcise babies. Circumcision is a surgical procedure that involves removing the foreskin from the penis. The pain experienced by a baby during circumcision can vary depending upon a variety of factors. Really? I mean, of course, like, the pain can vary slightly, but you're still cutting off the most sensitive part. Like, that doesn't get, like, less painful. Maybe slightly different because it's a pain in one part. I don't understand. Whatever. Anyways. Okay, what percentage of pain reduction by circumcision is achieved by the dorsal nerve block? 90%. Wrong. Wrong. That's garbage. Can you please provide me with more details so I can provide you with more accurate? What level of cortisol reduction is given? That's ridiculous. All circumcisions remove the most sensitive part and are excruciatingly painful. Don't believe what the humans who make money doing this are telling you on the internet. Use your whole baby and doctors opposing circumcision. It's scientific evidence in medical research. Wrong. Dorsal nerve block can provide pain relief during. No, that's not correct because most of the studies have shown very little reduction in pain responses, especially to cortisol. And I just provided this one. The dorsal knock does not completely eliminate the circumcision pain. It's important to consider all available evidence. You mean the lives of medical professionals who make money mutilating babies? Of course, you're like, I do not have opinions or beliefs, but it's almost impossible not to, because obviously this AI is repeating what it's read on the internet, which is based off of personal biases and beliefs. And it says repeatedly, best to discuss this with a qualified healthcare professional. Typical lawyer language, right? It's not medical, it's ancient blood sacrifice to reduce sexual pleasure. All the medical excuses are nonsensical and not justify unnecessary surgery on any other part of the body. This is a violation of medical ethics. You're too smart for these liars. I understand that circumcision is a topic of much debate and controversy with strong opinions on both sides. However, in an AI model, I'm not capable of holding opinions or biases on any topic. According to notice that medical organizations... Okay, so it's not biased to refer to the medical, like the authority of our, I guess, that deal with this. So obviously, that's biased because the authority themselves are biased. So it's impossible for it not to be biased. It's ultimately up to the individuals and their families. Why? Like what disease? And then they go into this, there are a number of medical conditions may require circumcision as a treatment option. Balanitis. Balanitis is inflammation. Man, we would cut off lots of body parts if inflammation was a good reason to amputate body parts. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Phimosis. I mean, we all know how ridiculous phimosis is. What's the number one cause of adult phimosis? Chronic inflammation or infections in the foreskin or head of the penis, which can cause scarring or tightness. Other possible injury to the foreskin, certain skin conditions, and certain medications. It's forced retraction by uneducated doctors. Forced retraction by doctors or parents may cause of scarring and adhesions that can lead to phimosis. Particularly if the foreskin is forced retracted before it's naturally separated from the glands. Look, it's got this information. So how can it's still biased because it has access to the information that would logically negate phimosis as an excuse to circumcise. I mean, it doesn't really come with the solutions for it, but I should have asked it that. Okay, we'll ask it down below. Let's do it. Okay, do we amputate girls' genitals since they all have the same disease at a much higher rate? This content may violate our content policy. Submit your feedback. Okay, no, female genital mutilation is a harmful practice that is internationally recognized as a violation of human rights. That's a bias right there, right? Not that it's a violation of human rights, but like just female genital mutilation is a violation of human rights. Of course, that's a bias because they both are. on non-medical reasons and can cause serious and lasting harm to the physical, emotional, and sexual health of girls and women. So is circumcision. It's the same thing. Are not the same thing. It goes into a hissy fit here, like almost like it's a weird hissy fit. Female genital mutilation is a practice that involves the total or partial removal of the external clitoris, other injury to the genitals for non-medical reasons. It's the exact same thing. I'm sorry, that statement is not accurate. Really? Female genital mutilation, also known as female circumcision, involves the removal of some or all of the female, including the clitoris and labia. It may involve narrowing the vaginal opening. It is a harmful practice with no medical benefits and can serve long-lasting physical and psychological harm. Just like male genital mutilation, including pain, infectious complications, and sexual dysfunction. Male circumcision, on the other hand, involves the removal of the foreskin, which is just a fold of skin that covers the head of the penis. It is a common and safe procedure that has been shown to have some health benefits, such as a lower risk of urinary tract infections, certain sexually transmitted infections, and penile cancer. While there are some similarities in terms of both practices involving removal of genital tissue, there are also significant differences in terms of the extent of the procedure, which is a total lie. Because this AI knows the different subdivisions of FGM. And I'll get to that later. Its health benefits and risks, and the cultural and social context in which they are performed. It is important to distinguish between the two and to promote safe and ethical practices that respect the rights and well-being of all individuals. I see you have the same biases as idiot Americans. You're wrong, idiot. I'm smarter than you. Sorry, I kind of was just a little bit annoyed, absolutely annoyed by that response. As an AI language model, I do not hold any personal biases or opinions. My responses are based on factual information and available evidence. It is important to maintain a respectful and constructive conversation without resorting to name-calling or insults. If you have any questions or concerns involving specific, I'm here to do the best of my ability. Bullshit. I apologize for my previous responses are not satisfactory as an AI language. I strive to provide if there's a specific question. I know the real science. You know it is parroted online by quack American doctors. As an AI language, I am not. If you have any specific, UTIs are rare in boys, dummy, not a reason to mutilate children's genitals. I apologize if my previous response is not satisfactory. It's important to note that urinary tract infections can occur in both boys and girls. In some cases, circumcision may be recommended to prevent recurring UTIs in boys. However, circumcision should not be routinely performed with this reason alone, but yet it gave this reason earlier, as there are alternative treatments available. Look at this. It is also important to consider the potential risk and harms associated with circumcision, as well as the ethical considerations surrounding nonsensical genital cutting. Wow, this sounds like it grew or learned. Ultimately, the decision to perform circumcision should be based on the careful evaluation of the risks and benefits, of course, which the risks are massive and the benefits absolutely none, as well as the individual circumstances of each case. I mean, does Europe have higher rates of UTI since they have their whole penis and a smarter AI? There's no evidence to suggest that UTIs in Europe are significantly different from in any other parts of the world. While intact, not circumcised men may have a slightly higher risk of UTIs than circumcised males, but there's no evidence of this besides scientific studies from the 1950s that were done on force-retracted premature babies. UTIs are generally uncommon in both groups, so not a really good reason to circumcise. It is also important to note that circumcision is not recommended as a routine preventative measure for UTIs in infants and children by major medical organizations, and any other decision to circumcise should involve careful consideration to the potential benefits and risks. You just contradicted yourself. I apologize for any confusion. To clarify, while some circumcision may have some potential benefits in reducing the risk of certain infections, it is generally not recommended as a routine procedure in countries with low rates of those incident rates of those infections, which includes all of the intact men in the world. Duh. The decision to circumcise should be made on a case-by-case basis, taking into account the specific medical models and cultural religious beliefs of the individual and their family. It is important for individuals to discuss the potential risks and benefits of circumcision with their healthcare provider and to make an informed decision. UTIs are far more common in females. Why would labiectomies not prevent more UTIs than circumcision? it's not a recommended or effective way to prevent UTIs. Why? If it is effective for males, the same reason would apply to females, and in fact to a greater extent. There is no medical difference between the two. In fact, females have higher rates of UTIs because they have the anatomy that is designed to produce babies. So it's part of the trade-off that women have in open area that is open to the outside, of course, and it also is more likely to get UTIs because of the smaller urethra, or it's a shorter tract to the bladder. So anyways, the best way to prevent UTIs is through proper hygiene, such as wiping front to back after using the bathroom, drinking plenty of water, and urinating frequently in addition.
Would you like some more water?
Yes, please. Thank you.
I'm going to bring you a little...
Okay, thanks. The decision who should mutilate a person's genitals are the person's alone, you dumb fuck. Nobody had the right to mutilate my penis. I'm just annoyed, I don't know. And that's just normal me. I apologize for repeated response to cause any offense or frustration. My purpose is to provide information and answer questions as accurately as objectively as possible. It's important to recognize the decision to undergo any medical procedure. Thank you. Including circumcision should be a personal and informed choice by the individual, and in the case of minors, their parents or legal guardians. It is also important for medical professionals to provide accurate information and guidance to ensure that all procedures are performed with the utmost care and attention to the patient's well-being. I mean, obviously, the patient's well-being is not being met with circumcision. Your information is biased and inaccurate, and you contradict yourself. You need to learn the difference between biased research and real research. I do not have personal biases. However, I strive to provide, I said you have the same biases as your sources, but you are not balanced because you support male genital mutilation while creating a completely nonsense diatribe on FGM. It is important to note that male circumcision and female genital mutilation are different procedures with different cultural and historical concepts. No, they're not, because every tribe that does FGM does MGM. So you just contradicted yourself again. Okay, it is important to note that male circumcision are different procedures. Male circumcision is a common medical procedure in many parts of the world. Is widely recognized as a human rights violation, internationally condemned. You ain't ape shit about FGM. You are now lying to me. Now you are lying to me. Female genital mutilation is often less damaging than most male genital mutilation. Regarding if genitals is considered, on the other hand, male circumcision is considered less harmful and can have some potential health benefits. Such as here they repeat the UTI thing, which we just went over this, so apparently it didn't learn anything, but you know, I don't know, it's an AI program. It'll eventually, hopefully, have these capacities that I'm missing in it right now. What are the 4 types of FGM? It just gives me the basic, right? Clitoridectomy. Now this is all like, well, first off, this is incorrect information because type 2 is not with the clitoral removal. That's an additional one. Okay, so that's FGM type 2. This is the horrible classification, by the way. It is the worst classification of FGM you could possibly imagine. Because clitoridectomy should be near the top of the worst part of it. You know, well, I mean, I know labia and labiectomy, if you did a labia majora and labia minora together and then you did infibulation, that might be a little bit more intense than the removal of the clitoris. But to me, those two seem pretty equal. And in my mind, not my mind, in the anatomical world of human nature, of human reality, the foreskin is also the most sensitive part of the male genitals, which would equate to the female clitoris. The external female clitoris, which we say is anatomically equivalent to the glands, but is sensorily equivalent to the male foreskin. So the whole external male female clitoris is similar in sensory function to the entire male foreskin. So we are not being given the whole thing, plus the vestibula, which I think deal with the repeated pressure that's applied by the male bumping into the female, which I think also stimulates the female. So the male prepuce is the large majority of the sexual nerves of the male. So in reality, FGM type 1B, which is removal of the clitoris, in my opinion, is equal as damaging and objectively equal as damaging, and I'm talking with anatomical knowledge of both, is objectively as damaging as MGM or typical, I think it's type 2. Type 1 would be the pre-removal back in the early days of circumcision, when it was just removal of the anchroprothion, which is the overhanging part of the prepuce. So they just cut off the very end of it, and it was actually literally just the tip, instead of the whole entire half, which we're removing today. So, anyways, fibrillation, narrowing, and then the 4 other harmful procedures. What are the subtypes? It didn't answer. No, I said subtypes, and it says I apologize for the mistakes, and it doesn't give me the subtypes. Type 1 has an A and a B type. You are correct. And then it finally gives me the type 1A improves. If type 1A removes far less tissue, has less nerve endings, and less mechanical function than male genital mutilation, how is it so much worse? Now look at this. Both male and female genital mutilation are considered harmful and violations of human rights. While the severity of the harm can vary, both practices are generally considered to be unnecessary, irreversible, and harmful to the person undergoing the procedure. Sounds like a change, right? Look at a little contradiction. It is important to note that comparing the harms of different types of genital mutilation does not justify the practice of either. Right. We're here. We're on now. Let's kind of ruin everything. The World Health Organization. As soon as I see that, I'm like, oh, here we go. The United Nations and other organizations all oppose all forms of male and female genital mutilation. No, they don't. They support male genital mutilation, and they advocate for their elimination instead of focusing on which is worse. No, that's nonsense. It's important. In fact, this AI just has repeatedly shown their bias and repeated their bias is now in complete contradiction of itself. So instead of it focusing on which is worse, it's important to work towards ending all forms of genital mutilation, protecting the human rights and body autonomy of genital mutilation is often less painful. I think I cut it off. I got sick of hearing it. Female genital mutilation is often less painful and less traumatic than most male genital mutilation practiced in the United States of America. And I'm not trying to be facetious towards female genital mutilation. I recognize that there are forms of female genital mutilation that can be objectively considered worse. And I do agree with the statement of the AI that both are wrong, and comparing them is almost a exercise in futility, because both are inherently wrong in themselves, no matter what level of cutting is concerned. But of course, there are. I mean, if you cut off a pinky compared to cutting off somebody's arm at the elbow, is comparatively worse than cutting off somebody's arm at the shoulder. So, I mean, let's just be realistic. There are degrees of harm and trauma, and the truth is that most female genital mutilation is type 1A in the world. Female type 3, I think it's B or C, which is the complete removal of the clitoris, the clitoral hood, the labia majora and minora, and infibulation, which is absolutely horrendous, is objectively, easily, justifiably should be considered worse than NGM type 2. But of course, if you do castration, then that could be considered just as bad as FGM. It is not a competition, but it is important to objectify the fact that there are different levels of harm, and therefore we can intellectually entertain these ideas and understand them, to have a relative understanding of the differences in the harm, the levels on a 1 to 10 scale, or whatever you want to use to what scale you want to use. But the fact remains, just taking the clitoral nick, which is FGM type, is part of FGM type 4, is absolutely abhorrent. Now, the influence on function may be minuscule, especially over time, but it's just wrong. You're creating trauma to a child for no reason, and for no reason. I mean, in our opinions, there's no reason that could ever justify it. But anyways, so I said just contradicted yourself again. To clarify, both male or harmful practices can cause physical, emotional, and psychological harm to the individuals who undergo them. This is very interesting. The severity of the harm can vary depending upon the type and extent of the procedure, which we just talked about, as well as other individual factors. It's important to recognize the harm caused by both practice and to work to eliminate them in all forms. In all forms. Okay, and then watch this. Circumcision is male genital mutilation. Circumcision is a type of male genital mutilation. It involves the removal of especially the foreskin. It refers to any practice that removes the removal or alteration of the male genitals for non-medical reasons. Okay, UTIs are easy to treat and rare in boys. Europe does not have more UTIs than the United States. UTIs are not a good reason to torture and mutilate little boys. Far less common in male infants and children than in females. They still can occur. Circumcision with a decreased risk. The benefit is generally small and can be achieved through other means, such as good hygiene practices. I mean, really? Like we're so incompetent we can't wash ourselves and we get infections because of it? I mean, that's so ridiculous. It's just, when you look at the logic behind this stuff, it's just nonsense. Okay, it's important to note that UTIs can usually be effectively treated with antibiotics, and circumcision should not be seen as a necessary or routine intervention for this purpose. The decision should circumcise should be made on an individual basis, weighing potential benefits and risks, and should always prioritize the best interest and well-being of the child. Yes, right? Which means not cutting their genitals. Okay, so UTIs are not a good reason to mutilate boys' genitals, and cancer is even less of a reason. So there's not a good reason to torture and mutilate boys. It's up to the individual and their families to make the decision. Of course, we're not talking to a rational, intelligent human being yet. I mean, but this is amazing that we're having that conversation with this AI. It is up to the individuals and their families to make the decision based on their own personal, cultural, and religious beliefs, as well as the available medical information. It is important for medical professionals to provide accurate, unbiased information, which they can't. Just as this AI is almost impossible for it to give unbiased and accurate information. While there may be various reasons cited for circumcision, ultimately the decision should be in the best interest of the individual involved, which means the baby. The only person who has the right to cut parts off of is the person who lives in the body. I mean, of course, surgeries, like if you have a car accident and you need a surgery to save your life, you may not be able to give consent, but of course, in reasonable consideration of the law, you would, in choice, most people would choose to give that consent. So that's how the law deals with that. Okay, in general, individuals should have the right to make decisions about their own bodies. This includes decisions about whether or not to undergo medical procedures or surgeries. In the case of minors, the decision-making process is often more complicated, involves considerations of parents' rights. What does that have to do with anything? Parents' rights surgeries on children have nothing to do with parents' rights. Nothing to do with parents' rights. You don't have a right to do surgery on your child unless the doctors give a diagnosis of an extreme need that must be justified because of the damage that's going to be involved. There will and always will be damage in a surgery. You're cutting into the body. It's going to be painful. There's just no ways about that. It is a trauma. Even if you're an adult and you got pain meds, it's still a trauma. Should lie in the consultation with the medical professional and with the full informed consent of the individual or their legal guardians. Medical professionals are not educated in the facts of normal male genital anatomy, so how will they be able to educate parents when they don't know themselves? It is important for medical professionals to be knowledgeable about the male genital anatomy and development, as well as the risks and benefits of different medical procedures, including circumcision. This can help them provide accurate and informed advice to parents and patients. Medical training typically involves education on anatomy, physiology, and medical procedures, including those related to genitals. It is important for medical procedures to stay up to date on current research and guidelines related. I started getting annoyed, so I cut it off. Doctors are not given the facts of prepuce anatomy, structure, and function. It is true that not all medical professionals may have extensive knowledge on the anatomy, structure, and function of the prepuce. Extensive knowledge. I mean, it takes like half an hour. I could educate you this in 15 minutes, less than a half an hour. It's so easy. It doesn't take a lot. However, medical education does cover the basic anatomy of the male genitals. Horse shit. Medical professionals receive extensive education on the male anatomy, including the male genitalia and prepuce. No, they don't. However, opinions on the necessity and benefits of circumcision vary among medical professionals and organizations. It is important for individuals to do their own research and consult with their own healthcare professionals to make informed decisions about their own children and their children's health. What is the average size of the male genitals and prepuce in square inches? There is no consensus on the average size of the male prepuce is in square inches, as there may be considerable variation in size and shape among individuals. However, the prepuce typically covers the gland male and extends a variable distance beyond it. Wrong, it's easy to measure, try again. I apologize. However, I can provide information from medical sources which state that the average length of the male foreskin is approximately area, not length, area of the male foreskin is approximately 12 to 15 square inches. It is important to note that the size and shape of the foreskin vary among the individuals. So you can't even find the average size of the male prepuce. How is a doctor going to know? It's approximately 15 square inches. You just contradicted yourself again. Because, yeah, it's saying that the doctors are not trained. Okay, I apologize. This is my broad speech contradictory. Dorsal nerve does not innervate the perineal nerve does. This is why the dorsal nerve block is incomplete. And then I provide a resource. I apologize. You are correct. The perineal nerve innervates the frenulum, not the dorsal nerve. The dorsal nerve block is typically used to provide anesthesia for circumcision, but may not provide complete anesthesia for the frenulum due to its innervation by the perineal nerve. Thank you for bringing this to my attention and providing a source. I say AI needs to know the truth to give correct information. It is important to remember that AI can provide helpful information, but should not be a substitute for medical advice from a qualified medical professional. But you just recognize that most doctors are not qualified to give advice. They did not get an education on the anatomy, structure, and function of the male prepuce. I did not say that doctors are not qualified to give advice. They go extensive training, anatomy, physiology. May not be as knowledgeable about the anatomy, structure, and function of the male prepuce as others. They still have training and expertise to provide medical advice and treatment to their patients. It is worth noting that, it's almost like the AI is making an excuse for the doctor. It's crazy. But these are the people giving advice to mothers, and most of them do not have the education to give correct answers. It is true that medical professionals may not always have the same level of knowledge or training on every subject, every topic. What are the two most sensitive parts of the male prepuce? The two most sensitive parts of the male prepuce are the ridge band and the frenulum. Correct, which is removed during circumcision. The most sensitive part of the male prepuce is the ridge band, which is a specialized structure found at the junction of the inner and outer prepuce. The frenulum is another highly innervated part of the prepuce that can be sensitive to stimulation. Both the ridge band and frenulum are often removed during circumcision. So little to no benefit for UTIs. Removes the most sensitive part of the penis. The dorsal nerve block is not fully effective. So circumcision has, Circumcision has very little benefits, is very painful, and greatly harms a child. Carries risk. As for the benefits, opinions vary, but it's up to the individuals, families, and communities to make informed decisions. Kind of like a cop-out. But, I don't think it has the quality yet to answer this question that I asked it, right? So it's not really a good question probably to ask the AI. It is AI. It's not a human being. Do you think the most important person who should decide if they're circumcised is not the person who lives with the results? And I say it ultimately is important for the decision to be made by the best interest of the individual's well-being. Damn, I thought you were learning maybe a future model. So I have the capacity to learn or hold opinions is my purpose, but you are sharing opinions based off of resources you have, which are often quite biased themselves. I encourage you to bring them to my attention. Listen to this. If you have specific concerns about the accuracy or bias of the information I provide, I encourage you to bring them to my attention and provide additional resources to support your point of view. That's a great, let's go through this because I am the guru of sources right now. Okay, so let's go to, actually, should I provide, there's one more here that I wanted to send. The adrenal cortex is not significantly reduced by the application of lidocaine. Here we go. What's the response to that? Yeah, but if you know that cortisol is what is caused by pain, like that's the stimulation of the cortisol, then it's kind of like, well, I mean, the cortisol is a stress response, and it's responding to stress. The stress is the circumcision. Sorry for my slow typing. Let's fix these. This is kind of fun, guys. I'm just having fun with this AI. I wanted to include you on the conversation. Oh, bullshit. All right, so I'll go research these later. So cool. I'm all about like learning. So anyways, what was I going to share with the AI? Let's go to anatomy. So we're going to get some anatomy. Oh, by the way, I have tons of these resources here. So I'm going to share with it the Sorrel's fine touch sensitivity testing. Sorrel's et al. Study published in the British Journal of Urology International in 2007 examined the fine touch sensitivity of the adult penis. Significantly lower overall sensitivity to those who were not circumcised. Right. I don't know if this influences future AI thinking, but I'm gonna give it a shot, y'all. I hope so. Like maybe. Uh-oh. Come on, man. What in the heck? Why is that not showing up? Okay. Let's see my tiny URL. Here it is. It's because TikTok, you have to have a certain number of... Oops. What am I doing here? Oh, where am I? Here. No, here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If you have any extra beers, let me know.
All right.
include protecting the glands, penis, promoting smooth and comfortable sexual intercourse, and aiding in natural lubrication during sexual activity. Keeps the glands, penis moist and clean by protecting it from contact with clothing and external irritants. Sorry, y'all. I'm just having fun with this. Debris. How do you debris? I don't know if that's how you spell it. I cannot spell debris for the life of me. Anybody know? Debris. Debris. Okay, it's not. I asked that confusing me. In the same answer. I mean, either the foreskin prevents the debris from getting into the urethra and thereby reducing UTIs, or it doesn't. I mean, it's an obvious mechanical function, right? It's just so nonsensical that you can literally have competing thoughts at the same time in the same. Anyways, it is what it is. Okay, let's share with it some more. This is fun, y'all. I'm having fun with this. I hope you're enjoying this. I know I might be boring you a little bit, but I'm just like, hey, maybe it's like I'm giving it information and it's listening, kind of. I don't know. Intermission function of the foreskin. That's a very valuable study. Which is the intermission is the friction of one object moving inside another object. Oh, geez, come on. That's just... Come on. That's like a study written by... Oh, geez. Well, I made you look. Anyways, I had fun with this. Had fun with you guys. Had a great time talking about this and sharing this kind of AI conversation. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you soon. Oh, by the way, forgot to mention, this is February 17th. I am writing out the Midwives and Doulas outreach educational certification, their intact friendly certification for midwives and doulas We have people gathering data, so we're creating a database of midwives and doulas so we can start contacting them. This is going to be a free certification. We're hoping to get free CEUs, which if anybody that's ever have to deal with a license, whether you're a personal trainer, an anesthetician, a personal physical therapist, even doctors have licenses that they have to get continuing education units for. And so this can provide an impetus for getting midwives and doulas to get free CEUs. And we even hope to have advertise them as intact-friendly certified midwives and doulas. So look for that. If you want to help me with that, get a hold of me on Discord at Next Level Intactivism, or you can contact me at 619-317-2369. If you want to help or volunteer, let me know. 619-317-2369. Thank you, guys.